Hulu's The Act tells a true story that's so shocking it's almost unbelievable. I'm Zach Laws of Gold Derby, and with me now is Joey King. She's one of the stars of this new show, which also features Patricia Arquette. Joey, when you first heard about this story, were you as shocked as everybody else was?
Yes, 100%. It's one of the most shocking, disturbing stories that I've ever heard of and seen.
Well, I mean, just tell us a little bit about. I know there's still three more episodes to go for people who haven't seen the whole thing, so I don't want to spoil it too much. But just give us a little bit of the background into what happened and into the character you play, Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Yeah, so I play Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who is a real girl who is actually in prison right now. The story of The Act follows the true story of a mother and daughter, and the mother had Munchausen by proxy syndrome, which basically means she thrived off the feeling that she got when her daughter was medically impaired. And she forced her daughter to be in a wheelchair and her daughter could walk. She forced her daughter to have a feeding tube. Her daughter could eat. These are just some examples of the things that she did to get that feeling from Gypsy that she desired so much. So after many, many years of this torture that Dee Dee put her daughter through, she unfortunately got so fed up with it that she murdered her mother.
So this role is obviously a pretty physically transformational one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a bit about having to, prepare for this part? What you had to do to your appearance, what you had to do physically in order to get to it?
Yeah, I had to shave my head for this role. I wore fake teeth also for this role as well, and wore glasses, was in a wheelchair. But more so than that, I did all those things for physical transformation, but I also I changed my voice. And part of transforming into Gypsy, one of the most important things for me was to get her physicality right and the way she moves and the way she carries herself. And that's something that I worked really hard on. And that was part of the transformation process.
Well, there's a documentary out about it. So, I mean, did you look at that to kind of get her movements and her speech patterns down pat? How did you do that?
Yes, the documentary was super duper helpful. And any home videos that I found online, any interviews that I found online. And because our story takes place over 7 years, the current interviews that she did were also quite helpful because our story does end up in a place where it's close to the Gypsy that we've seen in recent years. And so that was all really helpful. And we were really lucky to have Michelle Dean, who wrote the BuzzFeed article that the show is pretty much based around, who was also in the documentary, who had a personal relationship with the Blanchards, with Gypsy and with, her father and all that stuff. So it was really helpful to be able to go to her for information and inside details.
In terms of capturing, I guess, her inner life, when you were looking at all of this archival footage and documentary footage and interviews, what were some things that you noticed about her that you tried to, capture in your performance in terms of, what's going on the inside?
I saw a lot of a girl who really she was trapped, you know what I mean? It was somebody who she was trying to come of age. She was trying to find herself, but she was doing all these things in secret. And so there was a sense of guilt within her, I think, that while she was doing these things like having those secret FaceTime sessions with her boyfriend and eating sugar at night, there were these moments where, there was this just normal girl inside who was dying to come out, who just wanted to come out so badly. But she felt this sense of guilt because at the end of the day, she really did love her mother, and that never changed. She always loved her, even up until the very moment that she decided to end her life.
And there's also something that's still very childlike about her, which is kind of striking. I don't know her actual age off the top of my head, but she's in her 20s or early 30s at least. Can you talk a bit about that aspect of it?
Yeah, she's in her 20s, and I think because one of the things that Dee Dee also did was lie to Gypsy about her own age. So when Gypsy was, 19, her mother told her she was 15. And it was also this appearance that Dee Dee forced Gypsy to have of being so much younger, because that was how they got free things. And that was how they got the perks of living a life of someone who was disabled. People treated them differently because they saw this poor little girl who had cancer and was in a wheelchair and had all these problems, and her childlike aura and the presence and the appearance of being so much younger was really what got people's heartstrings pulled. And so that was the manipulation tactic that Dee Dee used on the public to get all those things. And so I think that from years of being like that, now that Gypsy's older, she still has this kind of fantasy fairy tale way of thinking and speaking and behaving, because she was forced to do that for so much of her life.
You mentioned the fact that she does genuinely love her mother, and I mean it's a very strange relationship that they have, to say the least. Can you talk a bit about, I guess, the dynamics of that, and I mean how you captured that sense of, on the one hand, still loving this woman, but on the other hand, it being so destructive to you?
Yeah. Um, I think that, well, because she just had this mindset of just this whole fantasy fairy tale land, and it became so sinister because she relied on it so much. And even when she met Nicholas Godejohn, her boyfriend, she's tried to help hold on to this little fantasy. And even but she really did love her mom. And I think that what never changed between her and Dee Dee was there were two people who just desired love, and they wanted to love and be loved.
Mhm.
Dee Dee needed this love from Gypsy that Gypsy was just not capable of providing her anymore. She wanted to grow up, be a normal girl. And when Gypsy seeked that kind of love that she was looking for in Nick, I think that that's when she felt normal for the first time. She felt loved and she felt sexy and she felt all these things. But the one big obstacle was the person that was closest to her in her life that she loved so much. And I think when she wound up deciding to kill Dee Dee, it was more of like an act of kindness. She didn't want Dee Dee to see her grow up into this person that Dee Dee wouldn't let her be. And when it was clear to Gypsy that Dee Dee just wasn't going to let her become this normal girl that she wanted to be so badly, she thought it would just be much kinder to end her life than to try and force herself to like run away or something.
Yeah, and I think it says something about again, the childlike sensibility that she has, that, you know, not really grasping the severity of the actions that she ends up taking with her mother.
Yeah, 100%. She doesn't quite, I think it's a naivety, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's something that even when they did murder her, they just never thought they were gonna get caught. It was just this way of thinking that like it's the fairy tale way of thinking that everything's just gonna work out perfectly and everything's gonna be fine because everything's perfect and we're in a fairy tale.
Right, exactly. Um, Going off of that, I mean, working opposite Patricia Arquette as your mother, can you just talk a bit about how the two of you created that kind of weird bond that the two of you had?
Yeah, working with Patricia Arquette is amazing. I mean, she's such a brilliant actress and such a kind person. And capturing the essence of these two characters was something that we both really needed each other for. And I'm so thankful that we had each other and that we were so trusting and supportive of one another. Um, we, I think, we of course prepared for our roles, but I think most of the best moments to me in the show came from us getting on that set and having these spontaneous ideas, sometimes in the middle of a take and sometimes when we were rehearsing for a scene. But I'm so lucky that I got to work with her. It was such a collaborative experience and she's just incredible.
Well, did you learn anything, working opposite this Oscar and Emmy award-winning performer, that you would use yourself in future performances as a young up-and-comer?
I learned so much from her. I really did. Especially, I think one of the things I learned many a thing from her. Too many to even dive into, but I think that one thing that it was just something for me that I'll always take with me now is, this show had a lot of firsts for me. And I remember like this one of the very first times I ever had to, kind of be in a little bit more vulnerable position, and have no clothes on for a scene, for example. Patricia really, when we stepped on set that day, she kind of just took the reins and was like, okay, so this is a scene that Joey has to do today. It's going to be very vulnerable for her. This is what I want to happen. I want the camera tilted this way when she gets into the tub. I want only these people in the room. I want all monitors turned off facing that way. And I was watching her orchestrate this experience for me, and I was so thankful to have someone who has been through this before, who cared about me enough to be like, hey, it's okay to ask for these things, because you're a person and this is a weird situation that you're in, and like, let me show you that way. And I was so thankful for that, because it was so helpful to have someone who was totally your advocate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she's certainly a first-class performer, and from the sounds of it, person as well.
Yeah.
In terms of your relationship with Nick Gojohn, you touched on that a little bit, but what, I guess, can you talk a little bit more about what really draws her to this guy specifically? Is it just the fact that he's the first person to show her some kind of affection, or I mean, what is it?
To be honest with you, I think that's a huge portion of what it is. To have someone show you that kind of affection when you are not privy to anything like that, it is something that must have been so overwhelming for her that she couldn't even handle it. And I think that part of the reason why her and him got together was, yes, the affection, but I think because Nick had some mental impairments himself, things that held him back. Nicholas had autism, and I think he was kind of stuck in this fairy tale like mindset as well, that he met her and she kind of brought him into that world of my Prince Charming, you know what I mean? And he went along with it right away. And the fact that she could connect with someone on that kind of level, who, number one, showed her affection and love for the first time and no one else really had in that way, and number two, was so all in for that fairy tale like, fantasy that she had. I think that those are all, like, it was like a perfect storm, unfortunately. And because he loved her so much, and because he had the disabilities that he did have, when she obviously wound up asking him to do the ultimate sacrifice and he was willing, I think that all those things combined just made for something, she just had never had the experience to know what's right and what's not from a partner.
And in terms of working with Callum Worthy, who plays Nick in the show, I mean, can you talk a bit about what that experience was like, and about how you create that sense of awkward intimacy between the two of them?
Yeah, Caleb was such an amazing person to work with. I'm so thrilled that I got to work with him. He's so smart. He's so funny, and he's a brilliant, brilliant actor. And we had so many crazy things to do together. So many intimate scenes that were so awkward and weird, but I couldn't have asked for someone better to do it with, because it's like a dance, doing those kinds of scenes, and you have to figure out the choreography of your dance while also remaining authentic and doing your performance the best of your ability. And him and I together, I feel like it was a great collaborative process of figuring that perfect combination out. He's so good at what he does, and those scenes were so hard and so awkward. It was nice to be able to just have someone that you get along with there. And, like, 1 minute we'd be having some really awkward FaceTime sex call, and then like 20 minutes later we'd be looking at some of our favorite memes. So it was good to have somebody like that. And I loved every minute of working with him.
You're still a teenager, but you've been doing this for quite some time. Been a child actress for a while. This is very different from anything that you've done before. I guess, first of all, were you at all intimidated by whether or not you could, actually pull this off when it was first brought to you? And secondly, now that you've done it, what did you, learn about yourself as a performer that, in terms of the kinds of films or television shows you want to make, and risks that you want to take?
Sure. I think when it came to being like, can I pull this off? Yeah, I do. I felt that sense of, this is so much bigger than myself. This is something I've never even, but I knew that even though I was nervous, it was good nerves. It wasn't like, I don't think I can do this. I knew I could. but I was really excited to figure out how I could, because I'd never done anything like it before. And when I really got in there and just kind of dug my hands into how I was going to grasp this character, started working on her voice, started working on her physicality, I was really excited because, like you were saying, I did learn a lot about myself as an actor. I learned what I was capable of, and I was really proud of myself. I learned what I like. I could push myself super hard, and I was so happy because, I was working with some of the greatest people I'd ever met, not just the actors, but the crew and the showrunner and the directors that we worked with. And I felt so excited to be able to take what I was doing as an actor and take what everyone else was doing in their jobs and be able to just like push it together and make this crazy show. But learning what I learned about myself, I feel so excited to go forward because as we kept filming, I gained more and more confidence in my decisions playing Gypsy. And I'm really, really thankful that I was surrounded by some great people who made those, decisions that I made for me easier and gave me that courage to just to try new things and just to be spontaneous. To be spontaneous is so important, I think, as an actor, to get on set and be able to, have an idea of what you want to do, but not be married to it. Get on that set and just, let the scene sometimes take you where it may. You may think you have an idea of what you want to do, but then you get on set and it might not make sense. You have to be able to adapt and to learn from yourself.
And I mean, what are you working on right now? Can you tell us anything about what's up next for you?
Yeah, so I pretty actually recently finished this show. We had a quick turnaround period, but I'm leaving quite soon to go film the sequel to The Kissing Booth as well.
Gotcha. Well, Joey King, I know that after this, everybody's certainly looking forward to seeing what you do next. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Zachary. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thanks to all of you at home for watching. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below and make sure you visit us at goldderby.com for all the latest entertainment awards news and to make your own predictions. Thanks so much.
Thank you.